Joining me now is Howard Klein, founder and partner at RK Equity. Great to see you.
Nice to be here. Thanks for taking the time.
Now, you did a presentation today, and one of the aspects of it is you talk about the North American lithium triangle. So can you explain that to us?
Sure, yes. Everyone's familiar with the South American lithium triangle from Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. So over the last kind of 5 years, we've been doing work with Canadian assets and North Carolina assets. So the North American lithium triangle, spodumene based, is Quebec, Ontario, and North Carolina. So in North Carolina, you have Albemarle, Kings Mountain Mine, you have Piedmont Lithium, that's developing that. And then in Quebec, obviously, you have the North American Lithium Mine that's just now started commissioning with Sayona and Piedmont. You have the former bankrupt, Nemaska mine that Livent is going to make a final investment decision about. You have, James Bay from Allchem, and you have Critical Elements, and then you have major new discoveries like Patriot Battery Metals and Winsome Resources in the works, and a lot of exploration activity supported in meaningful ways from flow-through financing from the Quebec, and federal governments as well. And then in Ontario, you have companies like Frontier Lithium, Critical Resources is developing green technology metals, and many others. But in general, you've had a lot of what I call, in Australia, most of the lithium is coming out of Australia in hard rock. I call that crocodile rock.
Good one.
Okay.
Catchy, I like that.
Yeah. So what you have is a lot of Crocodile Dundee Australians, kind of coming to North America. Actually, in Piedmont, Tazo Arima was the first such Australian, to develop it in Carolina. But you've had Aussies backing, Patriot and Winsome and a few other companies, Green Technology Metals and Critical Resources in Quebec and Ontario. So I believe that in Quebec, Ontario, and North Carolina, we can replicate what is kind of like Australia going to China conversion. So in North America, you need to build the conversion facilities as well, in particular for lithium hydroxide. Piedmont just announced today a definitive feasibility study for their Tennessee plant. Tesla actually is building a 40,000 ton hydroxide plant in Corpus Christi. Albemarle has talked about, I think, 100,000 tons, Megaflex plant. Nemaska with Livent, they plan to kind of go downstream. And Sayona wants to do their carbonate plant, with Piedmont. So you're going to see, I talked a lot about, in my presentation, in aluminum, the alumina and aluminum refining and smelting, Quebec, because of low-cost hydro, a very energy-intensive business. Rio Tinto and Alcoa, I don't know, there are 10 or 12 different alumina refineries and aluminum smelting. I think the same will happen in lithium. In aluminum, they have to import the bauxite. In lithium, you actually have the hard rock here, but you're going to have these midstream chemical plants as well built there. So we could see 10 to 15 new hydroxide hubs fed by the spodumene that's in the North American Lithium Triangle. And I put up a chart from the Piedmont Lithium presentation, which just showed with all the battery factories and car plants being built in America alone, I think you need between 650 and 750,000 tons of lithium hydroxide. Today, only 20,000 tons are being produced from Albemarle and Livent in North Carolina. So we actually have the skills here. In other places in the world where there are spodumene rocks, you may not have the skills in Africa and elsewhere, so they're just going to be exporting it to China or some other locations. But outside of China, the greatest expertise in lithium are coming from two of the 5 major companies, which is Albemarle and Livent. So Piedmont's been drawing on that skill set locally, regionally, and I think there's skills here in Quebec and Ontario that will be built, and Bécancour is going to become a hub. Thunder Bay, Ontario, may become a hub as well for the processing facilities. And then there are some companies, there's a lot of exploration going on, so there may be some spodumene only stories, and some of them may get bought, merged together, so there's critical mass. So there's a lot of we've got to find and develop, but I expect M&A activity to increase very substantially, both from within the industry and outside the industry, advanced projects and also smaller projects. So you're seeing Albemarle buying one of the most advanced, biggest Western Australian companies in Liontown in a hostile bid, pretty much, that's been rejected so far at a very high valuation. $3.5 billion valuation is 14% of Albemarle's market cap. At the same time, you're seeing smaller investments and smaller acquisitions happening with smaller assets. So it's going to be a very dynamic, very noisy industry, but and the price volatility is creates opportunities for investors, but it also slows down investment at times. So Tesla's cutting prices because they're not selling their cars as fast as they expected to, but that's feeding demand for lithium.
Right. So with the North American lithium triangle you're speaking about, and some of those companies you talked about, we've interviewed Winsome, Piedmont, a few others, but you talk about the Six Sigmas, i.e. Sigma Lithium, that I believe is now in production out of Brazil and has been hugely successful. And there are others in that area in Brazil trying to replicate their process. So without picking favorites, which are the ones among those six that are the most advanced, that look the most intriguing to you as an investment possibility?
The Six Sigma is it's an economic, exactly. Right. So I often create puns and double entendres in that regard.
They're catchy.
Yeah,
it works.
So I didn't actually quantify six specifically, but they're probably going to be at least that many, if not more. And I definitely think Piedmont and Sayona, what they're building in Piedmont and Carolina, as well as the North American lithium asset, and Sayona in Moblan has potential for that. Patriot and Winsome have potential. Frontier has potential. I think there's a lot of exploration upside in critical elements. Right now, that's one project, Rose, but they've started to explore for the first time in a number of years. James Bay of Allchem, I think, is sizable, and Nemaska is sizable, so that's probably more than six that I mentioned there. But again, these Crocodile Dundees, new discoveries are going to be made. This has been an underexplored mineral for a long time, and high prices, incentivize, exploration dollars, and again, supported by flow-through financing that's available in Quebec. So Patriot just came out of nowhere. Winsome is coming out of nowhere. Watch this space. I think you're going to see a lot more discoveries made there. It's harder to drill and explore in those areas than it is in Western Australia. It's cold, you have to do helicopter drilling and the like. So, but those who, you've seen the success so far, it'll be far in the future before they're actually able to develop these assets. But this is a long-term secular trend that's, 20 years at least. So, so those are companies I think that are poised to benefit in the North American lithium triangle.
Great, and Howard, you've been at this focused on lithium for about 10 years now, so you're ahead of the curve. You're obviously having a lot of knowledge, so we appreciate you coming by, and let's do this again sometime.
Thanks very much.
Okay, good stuff.
Nice meeting you.
All right, Howard Klein. He is founder and partner at RK Equity.